Right now, the Texans are playing the Chiefs, losing 14-10. But in this video, we're going to break down everything involving both this week and the NFL playoff picture and how it's going to affect it. So we're going to look at it all. So for NFL games, first we have the Broncos getting defeated by the Chargers. There was that whole fair catch kick thing. We're watching the Texans now. They're losing to the Chiefs. Later today, we have Steelers Ravens, Giants Falcons, Lions Bears, Cardinals Panthers, Rams Jets, Eagles Commanders, Browns Bengals, Titans Colts, Vikings Seahawks, Pats Bills, Jags Raiders, Niners Dolphins, Bucks Cowboys, Saints Packers. And we're going to talk about these games and how it affects the picture. First, Broncos Chargers. The Broncos missed out on a chance to wrap up the division, and this could cost them big time, as the Broncos fall to 9-6, and don't forget that they were swept by the Chargers, so the Chargers will own the tiebreaker against them should they finish the same record. They're in trouble, though. Their next game is against the Bengals, a team that they might be safe from, given what happens with the Bengals next week. But if they lose to the Bengals, they're in big trouble for the Chiefs. Because if the Chiefs lose to the Texans today, then they'll have something to play for unless the Bills also lose. So if you're a Broncos fan, as gross as it is, you're cheering for the Chiefs in this game because if they have secured a 1 seed, it is much more likely they rest their starters. And if they don't, and a player gets seriously injured in a meaningless Week 18 game for the Chiefs, then Andy Reid's seat will be hot, flaming hot, especially if the team then suffers early defeat in the playoffs. That's like the one way Andy Reid could get a seat hot is if Mahomes and Kelsey get injured in a meaningless Week 18 game and then early exit from the playoffs. Considering that Andy Reid would be fired from the Chiefs if Mahomes never came along. And I strongly believe that. So the Broncos should be fine. However, nothing has been secured for them yet. Same for the Chargers, but they're playing the Patriots and the Raiders, so they've effectively locked up a playoff spot because they can't see them losing both of these games. Now for the Texans and Chiefs, they've both wrapped up their divisions. The importance, though, is pretty massive for both teams, given how for the Chiefs, they play the Steelers, another team that could be on their toes for the one. Actually, no, the Steelers have no shot of getting to the 1 seed, given how the Pittsburgh Steelers keep losing and they have no shot. Still, it's important for the Chiefs for the 1 seed, and it could matter for the Steelers for the division too if they screw it up this week. And then the Chiefs play the Broncos in Week 18. The Texans, meanwhile, they wrapped up the division, but they're looking to not get down to the 4 seed. Now what we have to understand with the Texans is that they're 9-5. They collapsed, but the curse did not strike them. They won back-to-back division titles. The Ravens, they play the Ravens on Christmas, and then they finish off the Titans. So they're probably going to be stuck in a 4 seed, but remember, they do own the tiebreaker over the Bills. So the Texans, really win out here, and the Bills lose out, maybe not even lose out, that seeding is going to get interesting. And, of course, the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that only 1 game behind. Speaking of which, the Texans, they need to run the ball in the spot, try to get back into field goal range, since I don't think at the KC 40 you can kick. We're going to keep tabs on this game occasionally. while this is going on. Anyway, Steelers Ravens. This so I think the Chiefs hold on here. Fuzz sent the KC-35. How? What happened? What and he threw an interception. Oh wow. Oh wow, this game is turned in a blink of an eye for KC. Okay, now I definitely think they're gonna win this game. Especially because with Houston getting the ball to start off the half and immediately throwing a lousy interception. Now KC is probably in a double dip. This could be a 3-score game. This could really be a 3-score game. So I think the Chiefs will win. The Chiefs will win. Steelers Ravens. The Steelers own the Ravens. The Ravens are their son, so the Steelers will win. With that, they would have swept the Ravens because they beat them early in the year without scoring a touchdown. And it'll be 10-4. They'll be 11-4. The Ravens will be 9-6. They will clinch the AFC North, and all the 8 divisions of the AFC will be sealed. Giants-Falcons, a meaningless game for the Giants, but I actually low-key want them to win. Because a Giants win will mess up the draft selection. That's the only way that this game really matters for them, is their draft selection. Because they're 2-12, they're awful. They've been eliminated in November. But for the Falcons at 7-7, you gotta realize that with how this division is shaping up, their only chance of making the playoffs realistically is through the NFC South. I guess they could make it through the wild card, but you gotta figure the Lions or Vikings, the loser that's near the 5 seed, Packers will be 6, Commanders will be 7, and while there is a chance of a team like the Rams Seahawks division loser getting a wild card instead of the team like the Commanders, you gotta figure that a team like the Falcons, their only shot is to usurp the Bucs for the division title. Now, the Falcons' hopes for the division title are, exemplified by the fact that they have swept the Buccaneers, and so they do own the tiebreaker against the Buccaneers. Especially with a soft schedule like the Giants, Commanders, and Panthers, of which 2 of those teams are god-awful, and only 1 of those teams is legit. It means the Falcons probably can finish 9-8. The question is, though, how will the Bucs do to end their season? Because obviously, if the Bucs do really well, then that could hinder everything. I think if the Bucs take the next 2 out of 3 and the Falcons win out, there's actually a weird scenario in there where a 10-7 team will not make the playoffs in the NFC. It's unlikely, but there is a chance the NFC will have a 10-win team watching the playoffs on their couches. Nonetheless, nonetheless, the Falcons have been playing really poorly as of late. They barely beat the Raiders, and they lost to the Vikings, Chargers, Broncos, and Saints. So because of that, and because they've looked like crap these last few weeks, I think the Giants, who are long overdue for a win, will finally get one here. Lions-Bears. The Bears are eliminated, but for the Lions, huge game in terms of the 1 seed. Wrapping it up, they play the 49ers and Vikings. That's not the most cupcake of schedules. But it's not, out of the realm of possibilities for the Lions. If they win this game, they have a good chance of not being the 2 seed. So they'll have to win the division, obviously, but, Cardinals-Panthers. The Panthers are 3-11. They're awful. They're eliminated. But this game has huge impact for the Cardinals because the Cardinals are trying to make the playoffs. And they got swept by the Seahawks. So they're screwed on that front. Against the Rams, they won the first game. Can they win the second game on prime time Saturday night, December 28th at 8:15 p.m.? Because if they can, then they'll make the then they'll be in a decent position. They have to pretty much win out though to get a wild card spot, and even then it's unlikely, given how hyper competitive the NFC is. But they're playing the Panthers. They should get an easy win against the Panthers. But then the road gets a lot tougher. What will the Cardinals do? The Chiefs kicked the field goal, by the way. So it's 17-10. I don't know what the Texans can do. Rams, Jets. The Jets are 4-10. They're awful. They're eliminated. But for the Rams at 8-6, huge game. At this point, I see the game between the Rams and the Seahawks determining NFC West control. The Rams did beat the Seahawks in game one. And again, a huge game to determine who wins the NFC West most likely. This could be game of the week in week 18. They also play the Cardinals in week 17, which is no gimme. This game, I think, is a gimme, though. I think the Rams are going to get an easy win over the Jets. Given how the Jets, again, have played poorly all season. Now, Eagles-Commanders. The Eagles are coming in as the hottest team in football. At one point, trailing the Commanders with 1.5 games by the division, they have now established a 3-game lead for the division. They on a 10-game winning streak ever since losing to the Buccaneers, and they look like crap in their Week 6 win against the Browns, but have since begun to, for the most part, dominate opponents, as you can see here. Their weakness is their coaching staff, which is not very good, and Jalen Hurts, who plays like a mediocre quarterback who gets carried by his insane wide receivers, running back, and defense. Given how the Commanders have looked inconsistent recently, though, including a recent 3-game losing streak, and how they can't beat teams over 500, I think the Eagles will win this game to put a bow tie on the division. They do play the Falcons and Cowboys, though, so I do think the Commanders will be in position for a wild card. But for the Eagles, this could really supercharge them for the 1 seed. Browns-Bengals is a mostly meaningless game, but not totally meaningless for the 6-8 Bengals, who I think will win this game. Because if they win, then they are 7-8. And the Broncos are 9-6. Then they go head-to-head. Head-to-head, obviously that will be an interesting game. And if the Bengals lose, then they are eliminated and the Broncos make the playoffs. Because at 7-9, you're not overcoming a 10-6 team. Or, any team at that point. That being said, if the Bengals lose, if the Broncos lose to the Bengals, then division control gets very interesting because of who they're playing, week 18. If the Chiefs can't secure the 1 seed, then they're going to have to play the Broncos tough, and they're probably going to win. And then remember, after this game, the Broncos would be 9-7, and the Chiefs would be, and the Bengals would be 8-8. Bengals Steelers. The Steelers might be resting their stars if they have their division locked up. At 9-8, the Bengals will control the tiebreaker. So thus, if the Bengals win, keep your eyes out for a historical collapse by the Broncos. It's possible. Titans Colts. Meaningless for the Titans, but not for the Colts, who I think will win this game. Because the Colts, they took a huge loss to the Broncos that really dented any playoff hopes that they had. But They play the Titans, Giants, and Jaguars. So 9-8's a possibility. They of course need a bunch of other teams to start losing out in major ways, of course. But if somebody starts losing out, if the Broncos lose out, the Colts could make the playoff. No, they can't because the Colts are the Broncos. But if who's the team that the Colts did beat? Did the Colts play the Chargers? No, they didn't. So there's a possibility that that could happen. But the Colts are not dead yet. But it's gonna be tough. Vikings, Seahawks. Seahawks, a crucial game to try to keep pace with the Rams' divisional control until they meet head to head. I think they'll beat the Bears, but the Vikings, I'm not sure. If they lose to the Vikings, it will really dent their playoff hopes. Vikings need this win to keep pace for the 1 seed and for the division title, especially because the Packers and Lions are obviously no gimmies. I think the Bills will get an easy win here. This will put them at 11-4. If the Texans, no, 12-3. If the Texans win here, then this wouldn't be catastrophic for them, even if the Bills win. But the Bills can secure being higher than the Texans if they win and the Texans lose, which they are losing 17-10 at halftime. Bills have patched Patriots, so it should be a relatively easy end. They should be finishing with a record of 14-3, but will it be enough to secure the number 1 seed? Likely not. Jags Raiders, a meaningless game outside of draft positioning, but give me the Raiders because it's in Vegas. Niners Dolphins. Both teams are at 6-8, and their playoff hopes are, in both cases, hanging on by a thread. For the San Francisco 49ers, they play the Dolphins, then they play the Lions, and they play the Cardinals. So their chance to make the playoffs are pretty much cooked, because I don't see them being the Detroit Lions. I just don't. The Lions are a very good team that are fighting to not be a 5 seed right now, despite their incredible 12-2 record. And the 49ers, I just don't think they have enough talent to beat the Lions in an NFC Championship revenge game. I just don't see them having it. Which really means that they'll be 8-9, and they really have no shot since either the Rams or the Seahawks has to win the Week 18 game. Their only shot at making it is if they win out at 9-8, and then hope for someone to flop down the stretch. The Niners split with the Seahawks. They got swept by the Rams, so they will need to really win out. And even then, I don't think the tiebreaker would favor them over the Rams. So they might be eliminated from the division title contention already. I'm actually going to check that right now. Looking at divisional records, the Niners have a divisional record of 1-4. The Rams have a divisional record of 3-1. So, yeah, it's impossible. And the Seahawks, for the Rams, they swept them. The Seahawks have a divisional record of 3-2. So, yeah, it's still impossible then. If the Niners are 1-4. So their playoff hopes are pretty much cooked. The Dolphins have to win out and then hope that a team up top loses out at this point. They play the Niners, Browns, Jets. So winning out to get to 9-8 is a possibility, but I doubt 9-8 is going to be enough this year. I really don't think 9-8 is going to be enough. Buccaneers, Cowboys. The 6-8 Cowboys need to win out and hope the Commanders lose out and also hope for a few other things. So their playoff hopes could be eliminated before they play if the Commanders beat the Eagles. But then they got to play the Bucs, Eagles, and Commanders, and I don't see them winning out in a really tough stretch. Finally, Saints Packers. The Saints are 5-9 and they're pretty much out of it. For the Packers, they really need to win these games because if they can get to 13-4, then they'll have a good chance of getting a high wild card spot, especially because with the Vikings, if they beat the Vikings week 17 for the third year in a row, then they'll have a good shot of getting up to the 5 seed. And then they play the Bears. So I think the Packers will win here. Now, as for the playoffs, here's where everything gets complicated. In the AFC, the Chiefs are 13-1 for that seed. Bills are 11-3, Steelers are 10-4, Texans are 9-5. So, the only division that's even up for contention is the AFC North. If the Steelers win, again 11-4, Steelers who swept the Ravens over the 9-6 Ravens will get in. But if the Steelers drop this game, though, they're both 10-5, and they both split the regular season series. Then it gets tough, because the Steelers also dropped a divisional game to the Cleveland Browns earlier in the year. They did drop a game to the Browns, but the Ravens also dropped a divisional game to the Browns. So, in terms of that, they would both have 3-2 divisional records, in which case Week 18 games that seemingly were meaningless could become meaningful. They play the Texans Week 17, and I think that the Ravens have a good shot of winning that, and the Texans probably aren't putting full gas on the pedal since they might be locked into the 4 seed by that point. Whereas with the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that is going to do everything they can to try to secure the 1 seed. And so that Week 18 game against the Bengals going to be cheering hard for the Steelers over the Ravens in this game. They just are. They have to. So the Ravens could win the division. I don't see the 2 seed for the Ravens as a possibility. I mean, I know people have been talking about the Ravens getting the 2 seed. I just don't see it. Because even if they win out in a really tough schedule, they'd still be 12-5. And the Bills, all they have to do is beat the easiest teams in the world, and they'll be 14-3. Chiefs, I think, will finish probably at least 15-2, possibly even 16-1. Where, and the Bills will be at 14-3. I think. I think the Bills will get the 2 seed, seeing as how they'll beat both of these teams and the Texans out by just winning their games. Who's 3-4 is tough to say. I do think that it will go Chargers, Ravens, and then Broncos, but I'm not 100% sure. Although the Ravens are the tiebreaker against both. In the NFC, again, Lions, Vikings probably coming down to Week 18. Same for Seahawks, Rams. Cardinals are looking in there, but they don't have the tiebreaker against they might against the Rams. They won't against the Seahawks. So they'll need the Seahawks to drop 2 games, and they'll need to win out pretty much to have a shot at the division. They're not eliminated yet. It's not over, but it's unlikely. Think of it as that way. Whereas Bucks, Falcons, again, the Bucks and Falcons both have really easy schedules that would put the Bucks on top at 11-6 as compared to the Falcons, who would be probably 9-8 actually. So the Bucks might be able to afford to drop a game and still win the division. And again, the Falcons at 7-7 have no shot of a wild card, given that again the Vikings are 12-2, Packers are 10-4, gets the Commanders at 9-5 with their only shot, and if they have the tiebreaker, it's possible, but it's not the most likely scenario in the world. Again, I do think that the Commanders get it, but they have a very high chance of losing and going to 9-6, and They lose to the Falcons at 9-7. Maybe they won't make it after all. Seeing as the Seahawks or Rams, the loser of the division, still might make it into the playoffs. It's tough to say, but those are just my insights.